podcast. We have a Seminole and a Gator together, trying to put aside their differences and bring you the fantastic world of college football. Thank you for joining us on this ride of hype, hope, and hilarity. My name is Brandon. I'm joined by Chris. Today we're going to remind our listeners about our Patreon options. We're going to recap Week 2 and preview Week 3. Also tell you about a special announcement coming up for something in the next week or so. Normally I ask Chris how he's looking forward to the show, but Chris, can I start off with a joke instead?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, go for it.
So a man wakes up Sunday morning. He gets up with his wife, start getting ready, getting dressed, preparing for church. And after going through the usual routine of many years, he looks over at his wife. He starts to undo his tie, and he slams it on the bed. He said, "Honey, I'm not going to church today." He looks at her really sternly and says, "I'm not going to church. Give me one good reason why I should go to church." She said, "You're the preacher." So there's some days you just don't feel like you want to do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You got to be incentivized to that, and I'm sure for both of us there's a little bit of that tonight. You're like, I really would rather not talk about these games, but we kind of have a show to do, and the fans expect something from us. So, given that story, how do you feel about today's show, my friend?
Oh, I give me one good reason why we should continue. Oh my goodness. I'm a little shocked. I think all of Gator Nation is shocked.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to talk about it because it's good therapy, just to vent, and I'll probably do a lot of that tonight.
Understandable. Florida State had a pretty rough outing. Real quickly before we get started, patreon.com/FloridaFocusPodcast. We have 2 levels where you can subscribe and contribute to the show. $1 a month gets you private access to our Facebook page, which is not public. By the way, I've posted the special announcement already that we're going to announce at the end of the show, so you would have already been privy to that. Okay. And then you have a $5 option, which is the Diamond, where you get secret episodes where you and I kind of dump some of our raw feelings onto last night / this morning.
Yeah.
So fans get access to that as well. So that being said, we'll go ahead and recap Week 2. We'll kind of follow the same format as we have before. Chris will kind of let you run with it for the Florida game, and then I'll alternate with the Florida State. So overall feelings on the whole entire Kentucky game in the Swamp.
This was an eye-opener. We talked before the game, and I was like, I don't like how everyone's just dismissing Kentucky. Earlier in the week, one of our safeties was like, he was asked, what's it been, 31 years in a row? He said, yeah, it'll be 32. And just kind of guaranteed a win. I hate it, absolutely hate it, when players or coaches guarantee stuff. Yeah. It's like, hey, this team already wants to beat you bad enough. Let's give them another reason. That's just not smart. I understand he's a kid. He's in college. I get it, but I just don't like when people do that. And then all the experts and stuff were saying, like, why are we even talking about this game? Florida's going to win. Like, what's the point? And just dismissing them. And I just don't like when it happens. And it was one of those weird games where for years, when it was a close game against Kentucky, all the weird little stuff like went in our favor. But this game, you felt it. All the weird stuff went into their favor. And a buddy of mine who's a Kentucky fan, and one of my oldest friends, he texted me at the beginning of the fourth and was like, okay, this is where Kentucky messes up and loses. And I was like, I don't know about this one. It was such a weird game. And credit to Kentucky, they came out and did what they do best, and that is just run the ball. They almost ran for 300 yards the first week. They ran over 300 against us. And really exposed a lot of stuff on defense. And I want to talk about the bright spots, and then I'll get into the, improvements? Room for improvement.
Opportunities, yeah.
Opportunities, that's what it was. And I was just struggling to find bright spots. I really was. But I found a couple, and then I'll get into all the negatives and just vent for a little bit. Bright spots, we had a good second quarter. Like, we outscored them 10-0 in the second quarter. Frank's kind of got into a rhythm a little bit. and I felt pretty good and confident. Our defense finally got some turnovers.
Yeah.
We're going into half up 3, coming off a pick right before the end of it, and I thought, okay, we're finally figuring out, who we are, and we're gonna run away with it. The second half was not the case, so we had a good quarter, but they had 3 good quarters, so not a good thing for us. Franks at times looked good, good decision making at times, and I really liked our receivers. They did real well, making some tough catches in traffic and stuff like that, and some clutch stuff. And really, we didn't give up. We kind of, fought hard till the end, but they were just a better team overall. So that's the bright spots. Not many bright spots for this game. Anytime you lose, you're probably not going to have too many bright spots.
Right.
As far as areas of improvement, oh my goodness, where do I start? Yeah, I guess you just got to start with the defense. They had their way with us, and I have never seen, in all my years of watching football, so many missed tackles.
Wow.
It was just left and right. I even said to our friend Jared at halftime, I texted him, I was like, the halftime should just be tackling drills. I think this week just should be tackling drills.
Wow.
It was so bad. Like, D linemen, linebackers, secondary, everyone was just, I don't know what it was. And I don't know. I can't explain. I've never seen that before in a football game where they just didn't want to wrap up, didn't give all the effort. It was strange. It was really strange.
Yeah.
I thought our D line was a really good unit going into the game, and they had 0 push. And the few times we did get a push, we couldn't wrap up. The quarterback did a real good job of scrambling. Our linebackers were non-existent. It was like there was a hole in the field there. I did like our secondary. They did pretty good, except when the quarterback scrambled and they didn't stick with their man and they got behind him and scored twice. It was just a real frustrating time on defense. And going into the game, we still didn't have our starting middle linebacker, David Reese, with an injury. Our DN, CC Jefferson, was still suspended. So there's 2 key guys there that didn't play.
Oh,
and
wow.
then one of our better corners, Marco Wilson, well, I think he's the best, but he's 1 or 2. He went out with an ACL injury first quarter. So it was just, oh man, it was rough to watch. And you saw our young guys come in to fill those gaps, and they didn't. They played like young guys. They didn't see really many playmakers step up. And so we got to work on that for sure. As far as offense goes, I think Frank's up and down. He had moments where he looked poised. He had moments where he looked like he knew what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
But then there was moments that he didn't. And our running game just didn't go again. And it was weird. Like, we have some, I think it's one of our strengths on offense, and you didn't hardly see them. And we were down most of the game, but we still had time to where I thought we could run the ball more, at least attempt to run the ball more, and we didn't do that. So that's kind of frustrating there. One good thing, though, about our running backs, this happened 2 or 3 times where they leaked out and caught long passes coming out of the backfield.
Yeah.
Now, we tried it with them going side to side, and it didn't work. But when they went right up the middle and just one-on-one against the linebacker, they won that battle. And so I thought that was kind of a bright spot with them. But no push on the O-line, and just could not get things going. We had a touchdown from a tight end, but other than that, they were non-existent. It was just one of those weird games where you think any moment now we're going to click any moment, and we start to in a second, and we just don't. And credit to Kentucky, they went out there and were determined. They stuck to their game plan, and they did whatever they wanted to do on offense and defense.
Okay. Yeah, I had a couple of thoughts on the game too, if I could. The rushing attack by Kentucky, that was what stood out. And you mentioned the offensive line. After Kentucky went up 21-10, I was like, oh, this is where Florida turns it on, and like you said, and I was wondering if you were going to bring up your Kentucky buddy. Yeah, I was like, okay, this is when Florida takes care of business.
Yeah.
And I liked the response there. Drove right down the field. By the way, that field goal was very good. I do not know what happened there. I understand it hooked and it can be deceptive, but yes, it was certainly good, and I cannot believe they didn't look at that again.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to mention that after you're done. That's one of those things where you're like, that usually goes our way.
Oh, okay, good point.
Yeah.
The other thing that stuck out to me, the second quarter, like you mentioned, Kentucky had the 2 turnovers and looked like it was going UF's way, but after Kentucky responded by going 9 of 13 on third down and rushing for 303, it just didn't quite come back the Florida's way.
No. And so there's 3 things that really were weird, where there are 3 weird plays where, like I said, in this series, we've been fortunate to get those breaks, and Kentucky got them. The first one was in the second. We're driving, and Franks goes in. I think the first down marker was at the 1 or the 2 or something like that. And so he runs, and I guess he was diving for the end zone, whatever, but he came well short and got hit out of bounds. And they gave him the first down at the 1. And so we rush up to run the ball, and we snap it. It looks like we're going to option in for an easy touchdown. Then they blow the play dead to review, I guess to see if he got in the end zone, but he was well short. Like, you could see that he was well short of the end zone. But they review, and they realize that not only did he not get in the end zone, he didn't get the first down. And that knocked us back to the 3, and we ended up getting a field goal instead. And it was just kind of frustrating because, like, man, we had a touchdown. And so that play was kind of weird, And then the field goal that was missed,
Quote.
which, yeah, exactly. And that was strange because, like you said, when he kicked it, it looked like he hooked it.
Yeah.
And then it curved back in, and all the angles looked like it was inside. But I don't know if it's a good question. Should those be reviewable?
Absolutely, it's a scoring play.
Yeah, and it's weird. And I think Mullen was asked like your thoughts on that. He's like, listen, don't ask me. Had one guy, his job was to make sure it went in or not. Ask him or the head of the referees. Ask those guys. Yeah. Don't ask me. And I think the guy, he's right. He was alluding to it, but he was like, yeah, that guy messed up on his job. So it's kind of those like, we get those, say, 4 extra points in the touchdown. That's that field goal, an extra 7 points going late into the game. I'm not saying it's the reason why we lost, because that judge didn't he didn't run for 300 yards. Kentucky did, So I'm not saying it's the reason we lost, but it's just those plays normally go in our favor. And then the last play of the game, the fumble, touchdown, whatever. Yeah, that was that's a play that we always get too. So kudos to them. I mean, it was going to happen eventually. You can't win every single game, but it was just weird because I didn't think it was going to be this one. I thought it was going to be close. I really did. Didn't think we were going to lose, and didn't think we were going to get dominated like that.
Yeah, I mean, I agreed. The experts agreed. Had you by 2 touchdown favorites, and I think that was a pretty fair assumption given. Now, you can't ignore the history of the rivalry, but to see the teams up to this point and knowing the players that they have, that's what all it was based on. And so, it was certainly entertaining. I could see where it's frustrating. And you're right, those scoring plays, they change the inflection of everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and we had one thing, though, that Franks missed was the 2-point conversion that we failed. He had a running back, a sprint right option.
Yeah.
And the play before, when we scored on a similar play with the receiver, as soon as he leaked open, I said, "Oh, there he is. He's open."
Yep.
And we threw it to him. The 2-point conversion, as soon as the running back gets open, my wife was the one that said he's open. And I was like, if my wife, and she follows sports, but like if she can see that he's open, come on, Franks, come on. So yeah, there's little things here and there that just kind of didn't go our way, and it was very strange. And one of the reporters was asking Mullen about the last play, the fumble, whatever, and he was like, "Oh, well, I'm not too worried about that." It's like, so what if it's not a fumble and we somehow get a Hail Mary and we win the game? Those problems are still there, though.
Ooh.
The problems leading up to that play are, even if we win, it's like those problems are still there.
That's a really good answer.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, it's an eye opener. And this is why I said they're 7-5 team. I just don't think they're there yet. And I still think they're a 7-5 team. You look at the back. I had them losing to South Carolina. I think that's winnable because it's at home.
Right.
You're seeing Florida State's not playing to their level, so that's winnable. So I still think we have a chance, and it's an early loss. But we'll see how they respond. Are they going to just fold, or are they going to use this as motivation for them?
Excellent synopsis. And that leads right into the Florida State game. And yeah, the Noles are not what we thought. So let me, if you don't have any more thoughts, I'll go and talk about the Samford game.
Yeah, no, you're good. I've said enough about that game.
So
next game.
Yes, let's move it on. So Florida State versus the Samford Bulldogs. So let me start with the positives here. Trey McKitty, our tight end, is emerging as a good player. So with our new offense, our tight end is pretty oftenly split out in like the wide receiver or slot. But he's emerging. He caught the go-ahead touchdown last night. Francois can run a bit. They're still not using him to that. It might just because of the lingering knee injury. 15 yards rushing, but did have a TD, and at least was effective with the run-pass option. Forced 5 turnovers. We found our red zone target, which is Tamarian Terry. This is no surprise. Most of the media has been hyping him as our tall new Greg Carr replacement, as we talked about before. So he only caught 2 passes, but both were touchdowns. So good for him.
That's good. Good percentage.
Yeah. Nyquan Murray, another wide receiver, finding his rhythm. We definitely stopped the Samford running game. The third down defense continues to shine, 22% on the season so far. That's a great number. And then red zone defense, we're at 33%. So stopping some guys. All right, that's pretty vague stuff, I realize, but that's about all we can draw from.
Yeah.
Positive on this one. This is an FCS team. There's no reason this should have been close, and there's no reason Florida State should only have led 4 minutes and 3 seconds this entire season so far.
Yeah.
Our rushing attack isn't there. 134 yards in this game, and that we're just barely over 200 for the season. 2 missed field goals. You might have to consider a kicking change, even though this is the slow start that Aguayo's had before. That's not something we can just leave points out on the field. We just can't do it. We have a slow defensive start. That's continually obvious. Let's let them do what they want for 2 or 3 drives, and then we'll just kind of get it, Now, I understand there's going to be some adjustment. You have an idea of what the game plan is, and you want to see exactly what they're going to run. But it shouldn't take that long to get there. And with the good defensive line that we have, you need to start making an impact right away.
Right. Yeah.
We had another turnover. Cam Akers lost his 2nd fumble of the year already. That's a concern. We're missing tackles too. It must be an epidemic in both cities because these guys are just. There's no way Samford should be juking our secondary.
Right.
It just shouldn't happen. We had missed assignments. We had a big play negated because we lined up improperly and a tight end was covered or 8-man line of scrimmage, something like that. That's just assignment football.
Yep.
The biggest concern probably is the offensive line. We had to play musical chairs with, you're going to go from left to right. You're going to go from guard to tackle. Our only consistent was the center. But when you had just a shift here and there and projected like 5 starting lineups for the O-line, 5 different situations where you're going to move people around, it can get confusing. So, Francois is still taking a lot of hits in the pocket. And do we need to train him how to take a hit? Every time he falls down, it looks like it hurts. I mean,
oh, really?
Even in 2016, that was the case. I was like, man, he falls so differently that he just looks like he's hurt every time.
Right.
But he constantly gets up. He did hurt his wrist a little bit, so that was a little bit of a worry, but he came right back in.
Do you think he's just because of the injury that he's just kind of shying away from all that stuff? Or
I that's the assumption I guess I have to make with this now. I mean, he only ran for 15 yards, and then we didn't use him against Virginia Tech at all, running the ball.
Right.
So that might be a lot of it. We keep running this couple of formations over and over that just don't seem to work. I would hope that we would just chunk that for a while and just not do it. It's like this diamond formation where you put 3 wide receivers in front of Cam Akers on that right side of the field, and you throw him a quick toss. Failed miserably twice. So why don't we just put that on the back page for now and hold on to it for a bit. 9 penalties. This is nothing new to Florida State. You and I used to joke like the best teams in the nation would have a lot of penalties. That's okay when you're winning and you're scoring a lot of points. For both of us right now, we need to scale back on that.
Yeah.
And we had another turnover on downs. We decided to go for it past midfield, so that might be the kicking game. Who knows?
Right.
And we were outgained 525 to 554. We down 13-0 within the first 2 possessions.
Yeah. I did a double take when I checked the score.
Yes.
I'm like, clearly this is, nope, okay.
And the announcers are like, you're not misreading it. This is correct. So Samford was up 13-0. We were trailing by 2 at half, and the national media was getting a hold of it. They're like, we might have an upset. And I was like, yeah, they might be right. It was scary. But we held on. We forced their offense to shut down in the second half. They only scored 3 points. Some of the things that we kind of knew about Samford is their quarterback liked to throw a lot, but he should not have gotten away with throwing that much. So I was kind of thinking they might score 17, 20 points, so we gave up about a touchdown more than we should have.
Right.
But it's obvious in the second half we started to figure it out. So while we were stopping their rushing attack, which was probably the only positive in our defense, we started to force the turnover. So he threw 4 picks. That obviously helped, and then we had the pick 6 to seal it.
Right.
So that's a list of things to work on there. It was woo.
Do you think it's just because of the Virginia Tech game and they're just out of it, or do you think that's a sign of what your team really looks like?
Great question. You can't ignore the 5-day layoff. We've talked about that in the season preview. I talked about that from previous years. So this Virginia Tech Monday night game will have some kind of hangover effect for sure.
Yeah.
Now, should that excuse this kind of performance? Not totally. I think you factor it in, but the fact that you almost lose a game like this, yes, is there room for concern? Absolutely. We're going to play teams that, sure, they're not going to have a good defense, like next week against Syracuse. We'll talk about that in a minute. But if we have our quarterback tripping over our own offensive line to sack himself, or if we have holes just aren't there, we're not getting any kind of push, then it's not going to matter. We're going to beat ourselves.
Yeah. Wow. Now, I have a question for you, and I've been trying to figure this answer out too. Who needs to panic more? Florida home loss. So used to saying win, home loss to Kentucky, or a Florida State win barely over an FCS team.
Samford. Kind of hard to tell now. If I had to react,
because a win is a win. Win is nice,
right?
But
against a lesser opponent,
yeah.
I give the slight edge worrisome. Florida State needs to worry a little bit more because you see a pattern with a lot of first-year coaches, and Florida State fans were quick to go to first-year coaches that did good stuff. And yeah, sure, you can't separate that, but they're like, Nick Saban lost to Louisiana Monroe's first year. Kirby Smart only beat Nicholls State by 2 points. And, I think it was Jimbo's first year. We got destroyed by Oklahoma, and that was away. So while you don't want to separate the two, there's some things that are correctable here. I still don't fully think we need to hit the panic button yet, but my hand's hovering over it pretty close. So, when we look at the upcoming weeks, this is a good time to have these struggles. But if there is a good time, if that makes sense. So a little bit more worried for us. What's your response to that? What do you think?
I would say I would give FSU the slight nod just because their schedule coming up. I think Florida has a little bit more room to leeway to adjust. We have Colorado State at home, and we have some big games. But I'm talking barely nod to FSU. Because I've been going back and forth about this too, but I guess it's the way you looked more than the outcome.
Right.
And you have no business messing around with FCS, losing most of the game. Yeah, but I'm not happy about Florida. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But if I had to pick one, I'd pick FSU.
Yeah, because you look at like the Virginia Tech game for us, and then the Kentucky game for you. There's both things you're like, okay, a few plays, this game's totally different.
Yeah.
But the overall start to finish with Samford just didn't look pretty. And I'm looking at this team and I'm like, man, I don't think we're abandoning the run game or the new offense that's been installed, but we certainly don't feel confident running and much better passing.
Right.
When DeAndre Francois goes for 300 yards, that tells me they're more comfortable with him dropping back right now. And maybe it was a temporary thing where we do that for a game or two and go back to the run. I don't know. But it's clear we cannot run the ball, and that's where we need to get eventually.
Yeah, that's what, for those listening, please, I want your thoughts too, your response. What do you think? If you have one panic button and one team gets to press it, which team is it?
There you go. That's
which team needs that panic button first? So I'm gonna see what you guys think.
I wonder they have feedback too.
Yeah.
So, a couple other thoughts I had, if I might, on ours really quickly. I wonder how the weather delay affected us. I'm not excusing that. You're playing late, and it's an hour and 15 minutes after start time, but, when you got to factor those kinds of things in, you got to work around it. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of a question for both schools. I wonder, just program as a whole, if transfers are overshadowing any part of the game. Because I saw that after the UF game, one of your running backs decided he wanted to transfer, Lemons.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we had a quarterback, our third stringer, decided to transfer. Now, this was before week 1. So, you also see with other schools nationwide, let me play 2 quarterbacks so one of them doesn't leave. And, you get this, quote, free agency going on. Any possibility that affects the kind of mindset of coaching or the players themselves?
It's never a good thing when a player says, I don't want to be here. And, these players that are kind of like brothers to you, when a family member says, I don't want to be here, that's just that can't be a good thing.
Right.
Now, in our case, I don't think it hurts as much just because all Lemons did was return kicks, and really wasn't like a dynamic kick returner. And he was like 5th on the depth charts for running back. So if we could lose a spot, it'd be running back. So it doesn't really damage us as far as play goes. Now, as far as in the locker room and how a team affects it, maybe depends on how his relationship was with them, but it's never good when someone who's close to you says, I don't want to be here.
Gotcha. Yeah, I feel pretty much the same. With us, it was the quarterback position, so that makes a bigger impact for sure.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And we didn't even get to see James Blackman last night because Francois had to play the entire game. Yeah. It was quite in question. There was never a point where he pulled away.
Right.
So, okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Just a short thought there, so thanks for weighing in.
Yeah. And now we finally get to move to next week.
Yeah. Well, real quick, let's do the other Florida schools.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I'll let you go. FIU. Hey, I was wrong. Thought Old Dominion would pull that one out.
Yeah, they beat them on the road. And they scored 14 in the third to pull away. They beat them 28-20 and no score in the fourth. Did pretty good. I was impressed by their first week, so wasn't too shocked that they were pulled this one out too. But good for them.
Yeah. I felt it was pretty evenly matched, and so
Yeah.
I took the Monarchs to pull the win. Didn't quite pull through me. So I'll stick with FIU on the closer ones from now on.
Yeah, there we go.
So from Orlando, the UCF Knights, they beat South Carolina State 38-0. Sounds impressive. Against an FCS school, you probably would have wanted a higher score.
Yeah, well, given that UCF likes to put a lot of points on the board.
It was a great atmosphere, second highest attended game. I don't know, I think that's all time. So the shocker here is Mackenzie Milton throws 3 interceptions, which is not like him. He has had off games before. When he played the Cure Bowl against Arkansas State, which to this point was their last loss, he played pretty terribly. He actually had a really bad first half of the Peach Bowl. You go back and watch. He had to run himself out of it, if you will.
Okay.
His first half stats passing were just abysmal. So it was one of those games you want to chalk it up to that, I guess. But scoring 38 when usually I would have expected, this kind of game, 60s, high 70s.
Right.
It's kind of surprising.
Yeah, I was a little shocked. I mean, I wasn't shocked that they won by a lot, but I thought it was going to be more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But hey, win's a win. I mean,
win's a win. Hey, yes, Florida State feels exactly the same way right now.
Yeah.
Take the win. All right. Florida Atlantic. Who'd they play again?
Yeah. They beat Air Force 33-27. I think an evenly matched game. Interesting. Like they have a handful of interesting games on their schedule, and this is one of them. But one thing I was impressed with, their quarterback Robinson threw 471 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Wow. No
picks. They threw over 400 yards and they ran for a total of 54.
Really? And even with Devin Singletary, he's supposed to be really good. They just decided to air it out this game, huh?
Yeah, Singletary had 57 yards and a touchdown, but as a team they had 54 yards. 471 yards is impressive. But I don't know if that was by design or a necessity or what.
Maybe they wanted to force it through the air against Air Force. Okay.
Okay, I see what you did.
There we go.
Right.
I'm 2 for 2 tonight. Perfect. There we go.
Okay. I didn't know this was a comedy podcast. Okay.
Well, you do what you got to do. Okay. Well, that's it's a pretty impressive win at a premier program.
Yeah.
So, another South Florida school. I was wrong about the South Florida Bulls out of Tampa. They beat Georgia Tech at home.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive win, 49-38. It was close there for a while. You and I talked about this a little bit earlier. But USF offense is clicking, and man, just overall, this makes the ACC look pretty bad.
Yeah.
You have Clemson with a narrow win over Texas A&M. Tough place, I get it, but they're favored by 12.5, so they only win by 2. You have Georgia Tech losing to South Florida. Outside of the Florida schools, you have North Carolina getting beat down by East Carolina, who's one of the worst programs in the nation. And UNC, by the way, plays UCF next week.
Oh.
Yes.
That's going to be a good one.
And the Tar Heels are favored to lose by 13. So, this is a rough day for the ACC. You have Florida State struggling. The highlight, though, Duke beat Northwestern. So at least we have our that to hang our hats on. So
okay. There we go. There we go. And Clemson almost lost.
Yeah, it's just a weird day.
Yeah. Week 2, going into it, they didn't have not many good games.
No.
Going into it, it was just kind of like a blah week,
Yep.
it'll get better though.
Let's hope. Did we cover all the South Florida schools?
Miami.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
77.
It's nothing.
77.
Dude, I told you Savannah State was bad.
Golly.
I think that was
tough to put 77 up against Air. Like that's wow. I'm impressed. I know it's Savannah State, but they held them to like 78 total yards.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's
crazy.
It's ugly up there, Savannah State.
Yeah.
But you took care of business, and I think that was one of the largest victories in school history. So hats off to them. So week 3, let's talk about going forward. Let's put the past behind us and move on. Who does UF have? You said Colorado State. Is that right?
Yeah, we home to Colorado State. Colorado State, their first two games, they lose to Hawaii and Colorado, and they don't look good at all. And they hosted Arkansas last week, another SEC team, and they were down 27-9 at one point in the third quarter, and they ended up coming back and winning. And I'm like, great, they figure out who they are right before us.
I still think you're gonna be fine. I've seen them play actually, and you're right. Is Arkansas the worst team in the SEC?
I don't know. It's a really good question. Maybe.
Preseason, I kind of thought maybe. Now I'm almost certain.
That's a real good question. I mean, we'll find out in 2 weeks against Tennessee if we're not the worst, but that's just the Debbie Downer in me.
No, you're certainly not. But yeah, I saw that. I was like, oh, well, Colorado State did some good things early on, moving the ball, but they couldn't score. They gave up too many yards.
Right.
And yeah, I saw that. I was like, man, they came back sure enough. So I still think Florida will be fine there. Do you agree?
Yeah, we should win. It's going to be closer than it should be. Ought to be, but we should just win. I think our offense is good enough to win for us.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. Florida State. We go on the road to Syracuse. Now, this is awful timing for a team that's struggling with their offensive line. Syracuse will score a lot and push the tempo, and everybody's going to say, and they're correct, Syracuse defense is bad. But, like I mentioned earlier, if an offense is beating itself, it's not going to matter.
Right.
So if we put together some things, rest up, get some guys healthy, and by that I mean as much as you can in a week's time. A lot of guys just are going to have to play a little bit dinged up. That's the nature of the sport.
Right.
Then we're going to be okay. They actually already put out a Vegas line here. We're 3-point favorite on the road, and the preseason I had us winning this game. Not quite so confident in that now. I'm almost going to take us to lose, but I'm not gonna. I think we will put it together. However, this is an early litmus test. If we don't pull out this win, then probably hand on the panic button. So
really, yeah.
Then it's that's pretty fair, right? You'd be 1-2, 0-2 in the conference.
Right.
Struggle against your only win is against FCS, and you would have lost to one of the worst teams in the ACC on the road.
Yeah.
It's that'd be time then. But
yeah, no joke. This is the wall. You guys are at the wall.
Here we go.
Now. Yeah, I think at Tennessee we'll see if we lose that game, then we're gonna steal the panic button from you.
Okay. Okay,
But,
very good. Who do the other Florida schools have coming up?
Miami has Toledo, 1-0 Toledo, but it's at Toledo, but Miami's I think should take care of them pretty easily.
Okay, I have a not quite house divided, but my family went to UCF, and we would say that Florida State's their second favorite team. Florida State's my favorite, and then I'll actively root for UCF. Both games are on at noon, so we're going to be in different rooms watching, yelling different things. Yeah, oh no, yeah, oh no. Okay, so that's going to be interesting.
That's funny. Yep. That'd be good. So who did you say Florida State? Syracuse. Syracuse, okay.
Syracuse, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think the Knights are going to, assuming they play, they win?
I think so. I've preseason picked this one to be pretty confident that they would win it, and be good for them if they do. A win against an ACC team.
Yeah.
They were supposed to play Georgia Tech last year, and the game got canceled because of a hurricane. That's just very odd if that were to happen again.
Right.
But
last few years, man, the hurricanes have really been affecting the college football, and I know they've been affecting lives, and that matters more. I get that.
Sure.
But I'm not belittling that. I'm just saying, as far as college football goes, they've been affecting a lot more recently than in the past. At least I remember.
Sure. And when it comes down to it, yes, it's just a game. Cancel it or move it. You're doing the right thing there. It messes up the season itself, but bigger fish to fry. Make sure everybody's safe, and we have everybody taken care of. So
yeah, maybe NCAA is just quicker on the draw on pulling games now.
Maybe, yeah, makes sense.
I don't know, but Interesting. That's
Yeah.
interesting. FAU, they host Bethune-Cookman. That's not going to be a problem
No.
for them. It's cakewalk.
Yep. Yeah, I'll say so.
Yeah.
South Florida, this is their neutral site game. They're going to Chicago to play the University of Illinois. And I already thought they'd handle this one just fine, and they probably still will.
Yeah. Okay.
Be a big
Yeah,
team.
they'll be fine. I was impressed. I was impressed by the Bulls. I really was.
Yeah.
Um,
Good on them.
I think they're gonna do real well with that quarterback. He's pretty decent, and he's
Yeah.
a good runner.
Yeah, you never know with the transfer. I mean, you should know with the transfer because you've seen them play. But
Right.
you got a new system, a new city. You never could figure it out. And with Memphis losing to Navy, hey, maybe South Florida's the Central Florida's competition now. That may be the game that decides the division again.
Oh, that's gonna be a good game. That's gonna be a real good game. I think it is. I think it's down to those two.
It's building up.
Yeah. And then we have FIU. And you talk about a coin flip game. They host UMass. 1-2 UMass versus 1-1 FIU. And this is, I would lean FIU just because it's at home and they win it on the road and beat Old Dominion. So
Yeah.
they're for real.
You don't just stroll into. I can't even finish that thought. I don't even know where Old Dominion is. Never mind.
You don't need to stroll to at Old Dominion.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
Yeah.
No, it's a coin flip. It'd be a fun one, probably close one. They win by like 3 or 4 points.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I see them.
Do we know who Miami's playing?
Toledo.
Oh, you already covered that. My bad.
Yeah, they're at Toledo.
I care so little about the Hurricanes, it just slips my mind sometimes. No, sorry.
You'll care later, but not right now.
Exactly. All right. Well, that's a really good recap on a tough week. Looking forward to another conference game for Florida State. Let's get that first conference win and kind of move on from there. After that, we have the non-conference Northern Illinois. So that would have been nice if we had it now, maybe, given how the season's shaking out. But you got to play the schedule you have.
Yeah.
So that about wraps it up. A real quick thought. Rest in peace, Burt Reynolds. Florida State did a really good job of commemorating him this last week. I already posted a picture on our Facebook page. They put one of the cars from the movie Smoking the Bandit in front of the statue.
Yeah.
And we wore decals, so good on us for quickly commemorating him. So
it was a good way to do it too. I was talking to some kids recently and about Burt Reynolds, and they're like, my mom and dad, freaked out when they said that he died, but like, who is he? I'm like, oh man, I feel old.
Yeah.
I feel old.
Those moments happen more and more to me. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, he was still before my time, but I knew who he was at least.
Sure.
But they were like, I don't even know who that is. But my parents were all upset. I was like, oh no.
Okay. Yeah. So good point there. Well, as I talked about at the top of the show, and Chris and I have already spoken about, Chris and I are working on something pretty special this upcoming week. I can't give away for sure, but stay tuned on our Facebook page, and we may have an extra episode for you in the middle of this week. It turns out that our schools in Florida draw some attention for some other college football podcasts, and I'll kind of leave it at that. So, pretty exciting opportunity we have coming up, don't we? Wouldn't you agree, Chris?
Oh yeah, yeah. You did a good job teasing it there too.
Yeah, it's
it's a good treat.
It's going to be a good one. So stay tuned, fans, and if you see an extra episode pop up in your feed this week, you're really going to enjoy it. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for all the fans for the feedback so far, staying in touch, the many ways that fans can do so. But Chris, can you remind fans how they can get in touch with us and tell us which panic button is bigger?
Yes. The best place is the website, floridafocuspodcast.libsyn.com, Libsyn, Libsyn. Facebook and YouTube, Florida Focus Podcast. A lot of activity on Facebook. Keep it up. Twitter, at Florida Focus Pod. Please feel free to email us with any questions or some of your voicemails or voice memos, I should say.
Yeah.
With questions, please. That's a good place to put where you think the panic button should land. That's email FloridaFocusPodcast@yahoo.com, our Snapchat FL Focus Pod, and of course our Patreon account.
And I forgot to mention this, Chris. This week we have a brand new one. I know to add to this massive list. We are now on Instagram.
Oh, okay.
So
really hip with the young ones.
Yeah, FL Focus Pod, just like the Snapchat. So yeah, gonna get some followers there as well.
Okay.
So nobody has an excuse now. You can find us anywhere social media abounds.
Social media, yes. Homes, no. But yeah.
All right. Anything else to add before we sign off for the night?
No, man. I'm glad we did this. Glad to vent and really start to focus on next week.
Couldn't agree more. It's been a rough one so far for Florida State. A rough night for the Gators, and let's just put it behind us and learn from it.
Yes.
So, all right. For the fans, thank you so much for tuning in. Give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. If you're on Spotify, send us some feedback your way as well. This is Brandon for Florida State saying Go Noles.
Go Gators.